Welcome back to Kintsugi Heroes, helping people tell the stories they need to share so you can find the stories that you need to hear.
In this episode, Natalie Stockdale is joined by Adrian Moose Skeggs. Adrian grew up on the idyllic Lord Howe Island, surrounded by close community ties, but faced a tough childhood with a seriously ill mother and limited resources. As a boy, Adrian pushed boundaries and struggled to find direction. But with the support of his island community, he discovered the power of discipline and teamwork through sport. Rugby opened new doors for him, taking him from a small island to representing Australia on an international stage. Adrian's journey is a testament to resilience, community, and the importance of making good choices even when faced with adversity.
Hello, Adrian. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure, absolutely, sitting here in my lovely little island and looking forward to the show ahead.
Yeah, so you're in Lord Howe at the moment, and Lord Howe Island, it has a reputation of being absolutely idyllic. Is it as idyllic as it seems?
Well, having been the pleasure of actually, of growing up here and was born here and this stuff, I mean, the beautiful thing about the island is, it's your education as well as your life. And it's a small place, 450 locals and tourism and stuff. But for me, it's just the ability, now I've even got my own son, it's just to go and every day, everywhere you go, you're exploring. And at the end of the day, there's an experience, a person to meet. So it's an engaging place. It's also beautiful and it's safe. So it's got all the attributes of what it should be.
That sounds like a wonderful place to raise a child as well.
Well, when I grew up here, I had a very, tough upbringing, which obviously I think will cross over. But I think at the end of the day, for me, I brought my 6-year-old back. He's done kindergarten here. We ride bare feet to school every day. I pick him up and stuff. And what we do after and before school is always an adventure on top of that. So, yes, it's an absolute privilege and a pleasure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Adrian, you're commonly known as Moose. Can you tell us where the name Moose came from?
Well, there is probably a lot of versions. Probably some people said it maybe was my dancing style, which could be a bit deranged, so therefore I danced like a moose. But I think really what happened was when I was 13, I just shot up. I was just this big kid. Suddenly I became a big kid. And I don't know, somebody said a few things and I became a sort of moose from there and it just sort of stuck. So I'll give you that's the tame version, but I think that'll do for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you. And you grew up on Lord Howe Island. Can you take us back to your childhood and what your childhood looked like?
Well, I
and
think
felt like.
Yeah. Well, look, when you grow up, when you sort of instinctively, when people are born in a place, they obviously understand what it is, what the surroundings are, and obviously you're surrounded by family and stuff. So there's all those things that sort of help you be and grow what you are. I was born in this amazing place to a mother who was 22 years bedridden, so therefore she was sick, and she had me at 46. And at that same time, my father felt it was a bit too hard, and he left my mother. So growing up over here to a mother that was mostly bedridden and mostly guided by my old sister, it was extremely tough. But what I found as we went along was that the power of community really came through. And I think the blessing of many of her friends and obviously people there, they realised that, this lady who had achieved so much in her life that, how can we turn around and look after, little Moosey growing up. But what also came with that is that, for me, not having, I suppose, the guidance and that sort of stuff of a normal parenting, boundaries were broken and I came to be quite rebellious, but I think it was more about part of that embarrassment was also, or torment was because I was frustrated in life because I didn't have the attention. We didn't have finances. We didn't have all the things. And when I looked around there, but I still, as I said, I still was part of a community, and they certainly guided me in the early couple of years. But there was a time there when I went off the rails. But certainly, from my point of view, I was very blessed to be in a small community that cared.
Yeah, yeah. So, can you tell us more about going off the rails? You have been described as being quite a wild child. Can you give us some examples of some of the wildness or mischief you got up to?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you sort of, when you're living on a small place, you always push the boundaries. And for me, it was, I always wanted to discover things and stuff like that. So, being a 10-year-old sitting in a tree with a bow and arrow shooting tourists going past on push bike, I thought was fun, but then obviously didn't. But again, it was just, that was what you did. In my early time, just after that, I started lighting a few fires, which I burnt down a boat shed and a cow bale, which had all our wood in to rebuild our house and stuff like that. But it was more about, I think because of the lack of attention I have, I wanted to seek attention in different ways, and therefore I pushed the boundaries into things where I thought, well, if I'm not getting, good, clear parenting or what it was because of mum was sick, I have to get attention in other ways. And I think that's what it was all about in those early years.
It must have been difficult for your mother.
Oh, look, my mother who, basically, in her latter years, she was taking around 40 tablets per day just to keep herself going. And the sad thing about all that sort of stuff, which I was too young to understand, that she really only kept on living to see me grow up. And the pain was enormous, and she just basically said it was too much, and she just stopped taking medication, and 2 weeks later she died because it was just too much. So for me, it was not until she sort of passed and I was, in my early teens, that then suddenly I realised this massive void, and that's what woke me up to realise, well, I didn't even tell her I loved her because I was more embarrassed about her being what she was rather than me. But she was just so much in my corner, and which was staggering, absolutely staggering. Her love for me was just amazing.
So she passed away when you were in your teens. Were you still on the island at that stage?
I just started going to boarding school because what had happened was when mum was sick and that sort of stuff, the island community obviously saw the love that she had for me, but also, that I was going off the rails. And at that stage, the community, which was amazing, absolutely amazing thing, they actually got together and sponsored me to go to the Armidale School for boarding.
That's amazing.
It was just a really amazing thing for the community to do. But obviously part of that was because my mum was so sick, and maybe there's a bit of self-preservation if I was going to burn the island down. So therefore it was about getting me off there, which a lot of people said was probably the main reason. But for me, and then obviously in my second year of boardings, my mother died, and which was then, it was just it was something I couldn't comprehend, didn't understand, and the emotions, that sort of stuff, didn't hit me for years till after that. But certainly, I'm now, she's my hero. I live her legacy, giving the attributes and the love that she gave me to my son and my wife. So I feel very blessed of her memory.
Moose, was there a point in that time in your early days of boarding school and your mum had passed? Was there a time where you were tempted to give up and perhaps go down a different path, a more destructive path?
I think there was a part of me was the element of frustration because, one, it took me a year to understand what I'd lost, and then when I came home and there was no one here, there was a void in my life about who was my rock, who could I go to?
Yeah.
And so suddenly what I did was I turned around and I felt like, wait a second, who's here for me? But what I'd done is I'd actually grown up. I'd pivoted because what I'd realised is that the meaning of why she stuck around was to be my lighthouse. But the other thing is what I had to do is be strong on her behalf. And so being strong is about choices. And I think from what I got from her was that, that she was always a person that powered through things. She was strong. I mean, she was a gospel singer. She was she played high level cricket and stuff like that. So through adversity, she had achieved a lot. So for me, I didn't have any adversity. The only adversity I had was I didn't have a family unit. But what I did have was the ability to serve. So I don't think I actually got the stage where there was another choice there. I think the only choice was for me is to stand up and be a man and say, okay, well, how am I going to embrace this world? And I was enriched by her attributes, her drive, and her passion for life, and I suppose for doing the right thing.
This wonderful and extraordinary support of the island community. You were in boarding school, and at that stage on the mainland, and at that stage rugby entered your life. Can you tell us how rugby did enter your life and how that changed your life?
Well, I think what happened was when I got off the plane from Lord Howe, I got greeted by this amazing guy called John Hipwell, who's 3 decades on actually Wallaby. And as soon as he looked at me, he said, well, you've got the looks for rugby. So I didn't understand what that was, but he just said, I look like a big buffhead, so therefore at the end of the day you should come in. So being a person that just loved to have a go at anything and stuff, obviously, when I got to school, obviously I didn't understand the game because we only heard rugby league over here on the island, which we listened to on radio. Yes, and so suddenly I got into it, and I liked to, because I was in the first basketball, I was playing tennis, I was obviously first cricket and stuff. It was all about being the best I can, and certainly what I realised that this was a very different type of sport. But what I got from rugby was the fraternity around the sport really was embracing, and the parents and everybody around it was, and so suddenly there was a cultural thing why I liked it.
Right.
And then I went on and obviously achieved some pretty good stuff at TAS, playing for the first 15, which I was very proud of.
Yep. And you evolved to actually playing for Australia. What did it feel like playing for Australia?
Well, I think at the end of the day, everything's about a journey. And on that journey, it's about understanding, for me, is along the journey, as it's saying, you're got to be part of something. It's also your resilience. It's also your tenacity. It's also the ability to be part of a team. And I think that, coming from a small community, having the understanding of what it's like to be part of a community really set me up for being involved in sports. So with my mum's sort of driven passion and her desire and all that sort of stuff, I really took to it. And obviously coming down to Sydney, I got a teaching degree, but I played with a great club called Warringah, and I fought my way up to first grade and played first grade. And then in 1989, I got selected to play for New South Wales against the British Lions at North Sydney Oval. And what I just realised at that moment is that when I turned around and looked behind me, all I felt was my little community on the island had given me this chance. And all I'd understood was the community of Warringah, but also looked after me as a family, my extended family. So all those attributes of community, family, and understanding where you come from, the legacy was just amazing. So when I went and played that game, I was on an international stage of just couldn't believe it. I had all my school kids on the sideline and yelling at me, and I had friends from the island and stuff. I was more excited coming off the game with half my ear hanging off and we just lost the game to see all my friends from Lord Howe and that stuff because I was just so proud, But yes, and then obviously I went on and I played for Queensland. I left there and went and played for Queensland for 4 years, which then I, again, was in teaching. But it was also about, I was a part of a really good team, and I got to really put my footprint on not only playing for Queensland, but seeing the world and playing on stages where we won championships in front of, 50,000 people, but, 20 million people watching on TV and stuff like that. So suddenly the little island boy had gone to there, and obviously the ultimate privilege was playing for Australia and Canada, where I had a photo of my mother in one pocket and I had a photo of the island in the other pocket when I played, because what I wanted to do is respect where I'd come from.
With the island community and your mother driving you on, propelling you.
Exactly. And I think that people in this day and age, doesn't matter if it's the workplace or doesn't matter whether it's the, sport or anything, it's about when you walk into anywhere it is, is to also be respectful of where you've come from and understand your legacies, right? Because, you know, if I go and, like, for example, check somebody out on LinkedIn, I like to understand the community they serve. In other words, if they're looking at Rotary or the sports or stuff like that, looking at a title or say they're a CEO of a company, you know, that's what they are now. It's actually understanding where they come from. You're better off placed than to say, well, this is how we can connect. And it's very valuable, very, very valuable life lesson.
Yes. Moose, is there, I imagine there are lots of highlights in your rugby career. Could you share one or two really memorable moments that have really enriched your life playing rugby?
Well, I think, playing for Australia was an absolute privilege. I think sometimes it's when I actually played for Queensland, we played what they call the Super 10 final in South Africa. And we were playing, and it was like Super Rugby now, but we were playing the final. And for me, it was like I was against this guy who was 135 kilos. He was an enormous guy and stuff like that. And I had to make sure that the foundations were up front where I played my position were there for the Timmy Horans and all our amazing team to do their stuff. So not only did I, reach to that bar, but I actually went beyond that and I actually came out flying on top. And so for me, the sense of achievement of doing my job and being part of a team and adding further value, and we won the competition, was just the sheer pleasure of not only we celebrate in South Africa, but also the plane home, and then when we got home, the reception. Now you flip that over again. I'm a school teacher, so I like giving back to the game. So one totally different experience is that I went and worked in the West Indies, and I went to an under-18s prison, and I coached a team there, and I also refereed their game. And in that team, there was 3 kids who'd basically murdered somebody, and they were in there for the wrong reasons. So what I did is enrich them, because not only what the rugby gave them, but also understood that, being part of a team for them is a way for them to find, what good can be in life and to make good choices. So, there it is, my personal one being up on the big stage, but also having that experience there was just, that was amazing to see. Here's these kids that were in a terrible place. What I'd done in regards to bringing rugby to them, but also myself, was just as amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine. And Moose, I imagine there were times when you may have felt fear or self-doubt. You were under the scrutiny of media constantly. Can you describe how you may have experienced and overcome some of those challenges during those years?
I think it's perceptions are one thing, but reality is another. And I think what it is, it's about being consistent in life. And I think what the life lesson there is that, I don't ask people to bring their scrapbook to a meeting, because, I'm only interested in where they're going. And so for me, I think it's very important that when we had when there were challenges, like, when I left Queensland to play for Natal, there was nothing vindictive about it, but things were said. We said, well, why are you going there? I said, for me, because I can. It was a huge life experience. They wanted me to go to South Africa. I thought it was just a huge adventure sort of stuff there. But also going there, fitting into a foreign country like that is very, very challenging. And at the end of the day, it wasn't easy, because you're a tall poppy and people are after you. So I think just at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there. There's jealousies. There's all sorts of people who've got agendas and all sorts of stuff. But really, that's their issue. And I think what it is, if you can sail through and be consistent and true to yourself, then you've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, so true. Moose, what were some of your greatest life challenges, both on and off the field?
I think the biggest thing that really hit home to me is that, we've all got egos, we've all got pride, we've all got these things. But, the difficult thing was the transition out of sport. It was, here I'd done all this stuff, and people you'd had a reputation for doing X, Y, and Z and playing here. I went into coaching, and obviously coaching was good because it was an extension of my teaching, and I love the youth sort of thing. But at the end of the day, what I did is when I came back home and I moved across into the industry, into careers, I never really nailed about what was my true value, my calling, right? Mm-hmm. What it is, it was if you went out to people and said, well, who are you and what you do? Yeah, I found it now. But at the end of the day, being a connector and being someone where I can help you get to, through my vast and trusted network, can help people get to you where you want to. The difficult thing was finding a home for that. And I think what it is that, yes, I can, introduce people to this and do this and facilitate this and that stuff. But I try and be strategic because of my relationship to say how I can help them. Mm. But in regards to that is that people got to see that value. And and that's what I struggled with was how do I take those transitional skills from a life of sport and teaching and rugby and stuff, but also my amazing connectivity and turn it into a business. And that was probably, and in a way still has, it's about, people seeing that value and then obviously to monetize that, to support future growth. So that's probably been the biggest challenge.
So finding your identity post rugby was
very much so, very much so. And it's a lot of sports people do because at the end of the day, you remember you're used to being put on a pedestal. You're used to having a doctor's there. You're used to having things done. You're used to having this sort of stuff. And when you come away from that world, well, there's no use to, right? It's all about you. And I think, professional sport for me is breeding a lot of people who are turning people, especially they're into robots. It's very, very prescriptive. And, you can turn around and give people accreditation, but that's not life skills. Life skills is about how they engage and, what they do and how they talk. And, so I think more of that sort of stuff needs to be done in that space. But it's the same with veterans coming out of the wartime. I mean, at the end of the day, they have the same issues about identity and that transitional skills and what you can do with them. So, that was probably one of the biggest challenges ever.
Right. Moose, you've said that adversity reveals character. Can you think of any moments where adversity has revealed your true character?
I think, probably the most one that stands out is the adversity of not having parents, the adversity of not having a mother, and the adversity of, of understanding that, I didn't have a lighthouse. And I think what it did is, so how did I react to that? Well, I fell in love with my mother in a real true way after she died, because suddenly I'd realised that what she was to me was everything I needed. And suddenly, because I was embarrassed physically why she was overweight and what she looked like, what she had inside her was, a lifetime of love and devotion and stuff like that. So my way, I suppose, of getting over that adversity of not having that is to find my strength and find my own way, which I had to create. It's like one of the greatest things I got taught in life is, don't go follow no path, go and create your own journey.
Yes.
So for me, that's what I decided to do, and I think that's how I got over that adversity.
And after all your achievements, after all your career achievements in mainland Australia and off the island, what drew you back to Lord Howe Island?
I always wanted to come home because at the end of the day, first of all, I had a house here, which is very difficult to live with. But secondly, I'd found an amazing wife who's, was just my rock. But more importantly is I had my little Cliffy, my boy. And one of the things I always wanted to do was my wife she got employed here in a change management role with the local council, which is the board over here. But to give Cliffy, my boy, the true essence of what I grew up with, and to understand that he could walk around here and the island could be his experience, he could meet people and grow and sociably and all this stuff. I think you wouldn't want anything better for your child than that and what he's going through. So, I'm not living through him, I'm living beside him. I'm encouraging, I'm supporting him. And at the end of the day, he's like any kid, he's got his they go through this and go stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it's very easy to turn around and say, well, just look out in the backyard and appreciate what you're doing. And that's what's happening. So I think, look, it's just an absolute privilege being a parent. But more importantly is being a parent on Lord Howe Island, where you haven't got too much to worry about. It's just, I couldn't speak volumes for it.
Yeah, it does sound absolutely idyllic. Can you describe your life now, Moose? What is life like on the island, both personally and professionally?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's like today. I go and volunteer work at the school. I support the school. I'm part of the school council there and stuff. But I go and spend and I look after a couple of the older kids there. They do sort of different type of work because we only have primary school. So I think going back there and being part of that and supporting the school, and I do a lot of community stuff. I'm on the local, aquatic club. I'm in the sub branch here. I'm also part of a advisory group to the infrastructure of the island, and obviously on the school council. So I like all that sort of stuff. But I think what it is one of the challenges is that how do you keep connected with the world, and working remotely has been really a real struggle, because what it is that, my value is when I sit in front of people. Zoom is, it's a fantastic medium to do that. And certainly you can get a feel and a touch for it, but there's nothing like looking in the whites of someone's eyes and being very expressive and passionate in real time. And so, look, that has been a challenge, but certainly from my thing is I'm finding ways and I'm finding different groups that I'm working with to enable that. And now I've got my amazing wife who's now starting off in her own career. She's doing the same now around her career navigator thing, looking at helping women pivot in their life or better themselves. So it's great.
So it sounds like you're doing a lot of volunteer work for the community. What do you have a vision for Lord Howe Island's future?
Oh, look, I certainly do. But, there's, for me, I have a vision because I've got a 6-year-old who's going to live in it. So for me, it's about future-proofing it. I think the key thing over here is that, community is key. Now, we've got a beautiful island where, the World Heritage listed, we're the most southerly coral reef in the world and all sorts of stuff. And it's an amazing place. But that amazing place has got a community. And that community, for me, it's all about, what you do together, and if you don't agree, how you get through things, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's the physical part of the island, which we want to preserve, but it's also the understanding of, for me, is that if people get on and we do things and we enjoy and we're all part of the sentiment of making it a better place, and that's key as well. So I try and steer where I've got the school. I've got a program here with the school where we do a lot of events with the community. I'm part of steering that because I think the more times that the young people embrace the elderlies on the island, the older people, and obviously the community, I think that's really important both ways that they have that. So there's a well-being behind that as well. It's also healthy. So, I just think that, people work hard. And when you work hard in an island, sometimes you can be isolated in your little silo and forget there's a community here. Yeah. So just doing little bits here, I think that's really important for everyone to crystallise and understand that, let's do things together every now and then to make us all feel better. It'd be good.
How easy or difficult is it to actually travel between mainland and Lord Howe? I imagine there are flights, and are there ferries as well?
No. Lord Howe is over 700 k's off the coast. So we don't. There's a ship that comes in the summer months every fortnight from Port Macquarie, and then the winter months every 3 weeks or so thereabouts as needed. We've got a airline, obviously Skytrans, which is now co-shared with Qantas Link. They come out of Sydney, and obviously we've got Eastern Airlines who come from the East Coast, such as the Gold Coast, Port Macquarie and Newcastle. From a sheer expense point of view, it's brutal. We get charged with a very premium airfare to get off and on the island and stuff. So it's not something where you can turn around and say, well, I'm going to work 2 weeks away and 2 weeks back on the island each month. I think it's just that's the sheer expense. So from a connectivity point of view, yeah, look, we've got the same friends. I mean, I've got some amazing people come back every year, and, you know, because my nickname's Moose, everybody knows me. And it's just good to reconnect with people. But it's also, I teach my son, we go say hello to everyone we ride past in the morning. We get to know people just organically, and I think that's the beauty of the place.
Moose, to young boys and girls, young people who might be struggling in a similar way to your earlier years, what advice would you offer them?
Well, I think the end of the day is, you know, when you live in your parents, when you come up with your parents, there's a sort of air of sort of who and what you are, and obviously learn from that time and stuff. And there's a reason why there's sort of disciplines and routines put in place. But sometimes it's about having, you know, the more experiences you have, then it's about finding self and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And those experiences can be about the island, about what you experience in the island. But most of the time, I think the experience is about with others. You know, it's about others. And one of the things I try and teach the kids here, or teach especially my kids, is about legacy. You know, understand where the islands come from. Because if you haven't got any reason to respect the place, respect the past, right? And I want them to do that. But the other side of it is part of the working with the school. I've got a couple of friends here who've taken the kids out on boats because we've got coral bleaching, and coral bleaching is a major part of, you know, they need to understand, well, they're part of the solution because it's their future, not mine. So I think, you know, for me, it's just, you know, it's an amazing place. I've got a great family and stuff. And I think young people these days need to say, well, you know, here I am, but, you know, what else can I be? And if you don't give them those experiences to be that, then at the end of the day, they're going to be a safe ship in a harbour, and they're going to be no good to anybody down the road. You know, I think the world's about embracement. You know, technology, even here, is something we're aware of. It should be an enabler. That's it, rather than actually somewhere, you know, where they just sort of live off. Yeah. Because when you're looking down, you're not looking up, right? And looking up is you're embracing the world and the people you're around you.
If you could sit down on the beach, going back in time, if you could sit down on the young beach with young Moose when he was a teenager, what advice would you say to young Moose?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's how I've turned out. It's okay. You know, there's, you know, I think there's an air of my grandfather who was a massively stubborn sort of person. Well, that seems to be, you know, one of my things that I am stubborn, and sometimes having an amazing wife to sort of curb that is a great thing. But I think what it is that, you know, is making good choices. I think at the end of the day, for me, when I was young, I didn't have a choice. Mm-hmm. The life I got handed wasn't my choice. You know, now look at all the families out there and the people who do have choices, because they've probably got two parents and people that can afford to do things. Whereas, now I'm not saying that's the reason I went off the rails. I think what it is more about when you're growing up and when you're young, you know, whether it's playing or being in life or whatever it is, you still have choices. And, you know, when you're young, you certainly need to be coaxed into saying, well, this is what you need to do. But sometimes it's a part of that and saying, well, when do you consider what you're doing? And, you know, so therefore, yeah, I think it's about making better choices when I was young about some of those behaviours. But I think, you know, for me, how I've turned out, and that's just part of the fibre of who I am. And people, you know, go, wow, what an amazing journey you've had, you know?
Yeah. And we absolutely have the capacity to make different choices and to change, rather than being stuck in a downward spiral. We do have the choice to change and make better choices, don't we?
Well, it is, and I think that's why you're around people that, you know, if people, you know, the telling point when you're around people these days is when the pressure comes on, it's about their instincts. And their instincts that come out, you know, part of the fibre about how they're brought up and stuff like that, but the instincts about what they've learnt and experienced. If their instincts is to, you know, it's about me, not we, then suddenly you got someone they're not going to help you. All they're going to do is about them, and that's their self-interest is not going to help anybody. And so I think that's the issue I find these days is the amount of self-interest in people, how they do and what they do in this world now. I've got that as well. I've got ego. I've got all that sort of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it's always been about we, not me.
Mm. Yeah, that's very clear from your experience on the island as an island community member, and also as rugby team members of rugby team, a member of rugby teams. You've been very much about we and not me.
Yeah.
Moose, is there anything else you would like to finish off with? Any other?
Well, I think at the end of the day is that I want people to, I suppose all the little sayings I have in life where, thing about keep your eye upon the donut, not upon the hole. The donut is reality. The donut is real. And I think we live in a world now where people are just so fixated on the whole about the wannabes and the things and technology and all this sort of stuff. Passion is a great thing to have, but passion doesn't get you home. Passion is part of the parcel. And I played many a rugby team that are full of passion, but once you knock the passion out of them, what's left? So I think about desire, all that sort of stuff. So I'd like to see a world where I suppose what it is, where listening is probably an attribute where people should need to really understand. Whereas if people's instincts are have that self-interest, and also they can't get away from the past, they hang on to the past, well, you're only going to live in their future, and you want to live in that future if that's the way they are. So I think that there's a lesson there in regards to, it's a tough world we live in. Don't make it any tougher. Be open and receptive to understand that, people are all different, but to understand that is before you actually, you blanket them with what you really think they are. And so, that's where we can all have a better life.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you very much for your time, Moose, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day in paradise.
Yeah, certainly will, and appreciate it, and really thanks for your time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Kintsugi Heroes. Thank you to Colin Lilly for permission to use Broken as our theme music for this series. If you enjoyed this conversation, share the podcast with a friend and let us know by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support Kintsugi Heroes and the stories we share, head to kintsugiheroes.com.au and follow the instructions to make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.